The story begins with a very popular famous novel, The Legend of Hero Alan, which is loved by millions of fans around the world, but unfortunately the protagonist, who is the author, is very ill and sick at the last stage of his life. However, he is still very determined to finish his masterpiece and believe that only he can complete the novel. His manager tries to intervene, insisting that the author should rest and seek treatment, but the author is steadfast in his mission. He knows that time is running out and he won't let anything stand in the way of completing his manuscript. But it's not just any manuscript. This is a story that only he can tell, and he won't let anyone else take the reins. His manager tries to reason with him, but the author knows that if he stops now, he may never get the chance to finish his life's work. As the clock ticks, the author pushes himself to the limit, pouring all his remaining energy and creativity into his writing. It's a race against time, but he won't give up. He kept on writing regardless of how weak and trembling he was, with the strong desire to die as an author. His manager saw his determination and had a sense of pity for him. The manager agreed to let him complete the manuscript and promised to take good care of him until he finished. He had the thought that he needed just a little more time. But right after he finished his manuscript and announced it was complete by pressing the keyboard, he suddenly collapsed to the ground. As he took his final breath, he felt a sense of satisfaction and had no feelings of remorse about dying, as he had accomplished his goal of finishing the manuscript. After a short period, the author's eyes suddenly opened wide, as if he had just awakened from a deep sleep. He was astonished to find that he was alive once more, as he had believed that he had expended all of his mental and physical strength. While pondering why he was still alive, he realized that his body wasn't in pain and it didn't feel like he had undergone surgery. He got up to explore his surroundings, but was startled when he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror. To his surprise, he discovered that he had been reincarnated into the persona of a minor character named Will Campbell, who he had created in the novel he had written. Despite being thoroughly astonished, he couldn't help but wonder why he had been reincarnated as Will, a minor character who was both nearsighted and unpleasant. Despite his lack of magical ability, Will possessed some magical powers and was a ridiculous and bothersome character who only excelled at abusing the power of his family. Upon emerging from his state of shock, he observed that he had been transmigrated into the persona of Will at the beginning of the story. As he pondered his path forward, he recollected that the Campbell family would face destruction in the original story because of their wickedness. Consequently, if he were to follow the original storyline and portray Will Campbell's character as it was, he would also face a grim fate. Given the opportunity to start anew, he resolved to live life to the fullest and realized that in order to do so, he needed to correct the Campbell family's misdeeds. He recollected that at this time of his writing, there was an individual whom he had only considered killing in his story. However, now that he had been transported into that world, he had no intention of letting that come to pass. He resolved to give the story the most satisfying conclusion possible and felt that he could exceed the original storyline since he was the one who had created it. In order to exceed the original storyline, he recognized the need to first acquire some strength, since the sub-character Will possessed no talent in either magic or martial arts. Since he lacked any abilities of his own, he relied on his knowledge of the original work. On the day of the entrance exam for the Celiac Magic Academy, he exited his father's residence with a grin on his face, impeccably dressed and prepared to ace the exam. As he stepped outside, he encountered his father next to the carriage that would transport him to the entrance exam. His father instructed him to pass the examination at any cost, to which he confidently assured his father that he would do just that. He informed his father about the top-secret forced labor in the underground facilities, but his father was shocked and asked how he found out. Will questioned his father's belief that nobody would ever uncover the truth and warned that if the information was made public, it would ruin the Campbell family. Will's father advised him to stop talking about the forced labor he learned about and to focus on passing the entrance exam for the Replica Magic Academy. Will agreed and left for the exam. During his journey in the carriage to the capital, Will contemplated how he would live a different life from the original story. He realized that he needed to obtain the sorcerer's ring from the ancient ruin in order to use magic. Suddenly, Will's thoughts were interrupted by the appearance of a rank A monster, a red dragon, which struck the carriage he was in and caused him to fall off. As he saw the dragon, he was taken aback and wondered why such a powerful creature would be in that location. The servant driving the carriage fled for his life, leaving Will confused and questioning if this turn of events was part of the original story. Will realized that the red dragon had set its sights on him, and he believed that he had hit a dead end in his new life right after starting it. He knew that escaping from the situation was impossible, so he had no choice but to defeat the creature. Because he was familiar with the original story, he understood the red dragon's behavior, vulnerabilities, and all the necessary details. However, he realized he needed a powerful magic to make progress, but he didn't possess such magic. While pondering what to do next, Hero Alan, the lead character in his novel, appeared out of nowhere and saved him. Will pondered whether Alan would coincidentally come across him, but he realized that even if Alan did appear, he wouldn't be able to defeat the red dragon by himself based on the storyline. Alan interrupted Will's train of thought and informed him that he had already sought assistance from the coachman before arriving. Alan suggested that if they waited a little longer, they might have a chance to escape. However, Will was not in agreement and instead proposed that they defeat the red dragon themselves. When Alan asked for Will's plan to do so, Will claimed that he had one, but he couldn't explain it in detail due to their time constraints. Will inquired Aline whether he could repeatedly attack the dragon's wings with ice shadow once he cuts through it, and Aline consented. Will's strategy is to eliminate the magic organ situated in the dragon's chest, which serves as the source of its fire power, in order to defeat it. However, when Will attempted to attack the dragon, he ended up being wounded by the dragon instead. Will lost a lot of blood, leading him to believe that he could not survive in that world. Alan sensed that Will was in trouble and used his high-level magic, Absolute Zero, to help him. Will was amazed as he realized that in the original story, Alan had not yet acquired the ability to use Absolute Zero. He watched in awe as the protagonist of his tale exceeded the original narrative. To everyone's surprise, Alan used his Absolute Zero magical power to defeat the dragon in one shot. He turned to Will and asked if he was alright, and Will expressed his gratitude. Help arrived just in time, but to the knight's surprise, the dragon had already been defeated before they arrived. They treated Will's injuries, and they all got into the carriage headed for the royal capital. During the journey, they became acquainted with each other. Alan asked for Will's name and remembered that Will had called out his name during the battle. He inquired about how Will knew his name, to which Will made up a story that the name was that of a childhood friend. Will then asked if Alan's name was indeed Alan, and he confirmed that it was. Alan mentioned to Will that he has no recollection of his childhood, and it's likely that he could be Alan's childhood friend. In response, Will expressed gratitude for Alan saving him. They made a pact to assist each other in times of need. Upon arriving at the capital, Alan asked for Will's name and they agreed to take care of themselves. As they arrived, a crowd gathered in amazement at the sight of the red dragon's corpse. A man offered to purchase the dragon for 10 silver coins, equivalent to 100 million yen. Alan was hesitant to accept the money, feeling it was too much, but Will encouraged him to take it as he deserved it for defeating the dragon. However, Alan revealed that he wasn't the only one who had defeated the dragon and decided to share the money equally with Will. Will was grateful and happily accepted his share of the silver coins. He was thrilled that the money would be sufficient to fund his plan of obtaining the sorcerer's ring. Will was interrupted by Alan, who inquired if he had come to the royal capital to take the entrance exam of Celica Academy. Will lied, claiming that he was just on a trip and had many places to visit. Will then asked Alan if he aimed to achieve the top position in the exam. He warned Alan that the exam was challenging and advised him to focus his powers on one point. Will could see from Alan's expression that he was struggling to control his powers, so he suggested that to overcome this, Alan should have a deep understanding of his power. As Will and Alan said their goodbyes, Will shared some advice with Alan, leaving it up to him to take it or not. Alan agreed to consider Will's words and put in the effort to understand them. With a wish of good luck in his exam, they parted ways. But for Will, his mind was preoccupied with the things he needed to work on. That is, until a carriage passed by him and caught his attention. It was none other than Princess Selena, a character who had died in the original story. Though Will lacked the authority to have an audience with her, he was determined to get stronger in order to save her. Seeing her in real life only solidified his resolve, and he couldn't help but think she was incredibly cute. With a determined look on his face, Will headed towards the infamous slum in the heart of the capital. It was a place where the kingdom's reach ended and illegal organizations took over, giving rise to all sorts of nefarious activities including drugs, prostitution, and crime. But Will had a mission and a certain person in mind who could help him achieve it. As he made his way down the dark and dingy alleyways, a gang of 3 hoodlums jumped out, hoping to rob him. But Will wasn't one to back down from a fight. With lightning-fast reflexes, he beat the living daylights out of 2 of them, while the leader ran off with his tail between his legs. Undeterred, Will continued on his way until he reached a shabby-looking house. Without wasting any time, he barged in, only to be met by an elf who owned the place. The elf was taken aback to see someone from a noble family in such a seedy part of town, but Will had a purpose. He had money and he needed the elf's help with something important. Will surprised the elf by revealing that he knows about her dual identity as Nora, the informant who runs the information guild in the slums, and as an elf. The elf was shocked and couldn't believe that someone knows her secret. When Will told her that he had the knowledge of the original story, she was even more amazed. Will's knowledge was something that even baffled an informant like her. Curious and still in disbelief, Nora decided to challenge Will to tell her something that would leave her speechless. She promised to listen to whatever Will had to say for free if he convinced her. Will was thrilled with Nora's request and accepted the challenge. It was an opportunity to share his knowledge and convince Nora to help him with his mission. Nora is taken aback when Will drops a bombshell that her name is not Nora, but Garnet, and she's been around for a whopping 180 years. But that's not all. Will reveals that Nora ditched her elf tribe because she despises their traditions and customs, and ended up seeking refuge in the royal capital slums. As if that wasn't enough, Will spills the tea that Nora has been living a double life, pretending to be human and using her magic wand to spy on people and gather intel. And get this, he even knows her measurements, 84, 59, and 87. Nora's mind is blown and she can't help but interrupt him to ask how on earth he knows all of this juicy information. Will was eager to know if Nora would recognize him as the expert on a topic. When he asked her, she seemed lost for words and rested her head on the table. It was clear that Will had left her in a state of perplexity. He couldn't help but tease her by revealing that he had only managed to render her speechless so that he could boast about his newly acquired knowledge. But Nora was quick to offer her guidance, to which Will replied that he didn't need her as a guide, but rather as an elf companion. And with that, he asked her to take him on a journey to her homeland, the mystical elf forest. Nora and Will set out on a mystical journey towards the elven forest, with the wind rustling through the leaves of trees overhead. As they progressed further, Will pointed out that there were numerous withered trees scattered around, which was a marked difference from the past. Nora was intrigued and asked him what he meant by that, but Will only teased that all would be revealed in good time. Suddenly, a wise elf emerged from the thicket, and commanded them to stop their carriage and leave the forest, explaining that only elves could enter. However, Nora was quick to come to their defense. She called out to the guard, who was none other than Eric, and told him to stand down. Eric was surprised to hear his name, and challenged Nora to reveal herself. As soon as she did, Eric was taken aback, exclaiming in shock at the sight of Lady Garnet. And with that, Nora requested that Will be allowed to enter the elven forest as her dear friend. As they entered the elven forest, the entire community came together to welcome their princess with open arms. Nora was overjoyed to be back amongst her own people. She turned to Will and asked him what he wanted to do next, and Will requested her to guide him to the elder's house. But as they approached the elder, he seemed a bit skeptical about Will's presence. The elder told Nora that he was just thinking about her return but was surprised to see her with an outsider. However, Nora wasn't about to be deterred. She pointed the elder's attention to Will, but he disregarded him as just another stranger. That was when Will decided to speak up, and he revealed that he had come to put an end to the abnormalities that were plaguing the forest. He explained how the wind spirits had gone into a state of rampage, causing turbulence in the atmosphere and withering the trees. The elder was taken aback by the revelation, and asked how Will had managed to gather such information. But Nora was quick to vouch for Will, and the elder turned to him and asked if he was the one responsible. Will shook his head and explained that he had no idea how to calm the wind spirit, and that he was considering giving out a sacrifice. The elder was intrigued and asked to know more. Will corrected the elder and said that he was not just any messenger, but a messenger of God. The elder was taken aback, as gods were not supposed to interfere with the world. But Will explained that he had taken human form to follow God's guidance and had come to save the elven tribe. He assured them that God had not abandoned the noble elven tribe and that they were there to help. Relieved by this, the elder agreed to lend Will the elven treasures, the spirit mirror and the fairy's bell. However, he added a condition that someone would have to guard them while they were out of the elder's possession. Will understood the concern and promised to keep them safe. If you want part 2, smash the like button and subscribe for more.